Welcome to this discussion about the PMP exam. My name is Phil Akinwale, and I'll be your host, your friend, your colleague, taking you through the journey of PMP exam success. This class is called Project Management Masterclass, and it's 5 days and 35 hours of education. Welcome. I started off my journey in project management in the early 2000s at Citigroup. And when I got into Citigroup, little did I know that what started off as a manager of records management, would translate into project management and eventually program management and portfolio management. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey. I started off in project management a little bit accidentally. I had various waves of occupation that took me through what I now reflect on as project management dimensions. I was a studio producer before I started working at Citigroup, and I had this propensity to keep schedules and budgets organized, people organized. So when we went into the studio for the production, everything went smoothly. I really didn't recognize that this was just great project management until I was at Citigroup as a records manager now, having finished my first degree, working on my master's degree, and my professor, Dr. Keith Jones at University of Greenwich in London, said, Phil, I think you should write a dissertation on barriers to implementing project management systems. It sounded like a quite novel idea, never heard of project management spelt out like that, although project management made sense. Everyone implicitly has an idea of what project management is. But when rubber met road, I realized that practicing project management in firms required a lot of processes, tools, and a deeper understanding than just surface project management. So I got done with the dissertation and the rude awakening happened. I went for an interview for project management, my first project management interview. It was at DHL. I had moved from the United Kingdom to Arizona with a view to working for my employer at the time. And as that didn't pan out, I went for an interview with DHL. And the questions they were asking me were laden with process and dogma that I'd never heard of. I bombed the interview. The person who interviewed me was a Prince 2 professional that understood all about project management. And here was little old me having not an idea of project management in these new terms. Because what I had studied for my dissertation, I can tell you, it didn't have all the jargon. It was really more about barriers to implementing project management systems, not a PhD in project management. It was a master's degree in construction information technology. Long story short, bombed the interview, and I knew I needed to know more about project management. I totally missed what project management was because I was conflating the software development lifecycle, which is all about the project life cycle, with what we call the project management life cycle of initiating and planning and executing, monitoring and controlling and closing. It was later on I realized how badly I bombed the interview. But I was fortunate enough to work for an environmental engineering company shortly after that, and I met someone called Mary Hirschner. And Mary Hirschner ended up being the catalyst for my career, who said, Phil, I think you should take the PMP exam. You'll make an excellent PMP. I said, teach me thy ways. How do I do this? She gave me all of her books, CDs, PMBOK guides, which you will soon know about, and all the information she used to pass her exam, gave it to me. So off I went studying, thinking that within a day I should be able to nail this down. I've got a master's degree in construction information technology. So I proceed to the Mesa Library on a Saturday, and that fateful Saturday, I open up the PMBOK Guide 3rd edition, and I am totally clueless when I'm reading this stuff. The more I read, the less I understand. I go for a walk, come back, it doesn't change. Horrible. I ended up leaving the library on that Saturday totally deflated. What on earth? I have no clue what they're saying. How am I even going to pass this exam? But I stayed at it. And I moved away from reading the PMBOK guide raw to reading a book that she gave me about project management and the PMP exam. That ended up working because I realized when I focused more on learning project management in everyday terms, it made sense and I would do good on the quizzes. Fast forward to 6 months after I started, I had had enough of studying. I was about to delay it again, but I said, no, Phil, you got to go take this exam. So I went into the exam. And the first question comes up. Totally clueless. Second question. This exam looks nothing like what I studied. I got to question 20 and I said, well, that's it, Phil. You better start saying your the eulogy. Just go write a eulogy right now for the PM that failed this exam. What a disgrace. You said you were the big kahuna. Look at you. You can't even answer one question confidently. So in my head, I started getting ready to tell Mary why I failed. I had almost succumbed to the defeat until a gremlin jumped on my shoulder and said, Phil, don't you realize they're giving you more of what you're getting wrong? If you want to pass this exam, you got to go to question 200 and work backwards. So at that time, I was ready for anything. And that gremlin that jumped on my shoulder, I decided, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I probably should go to the end of the exam and do it backwards. I bet that's what they're doing, watching me from that glass panel of theirs and zinging me with more difficult questions. You know, I'm spiraling out of control. The conspiracy theorist gremlin has fed me all this nonsense, but I believed it. And it ended up working out because I went to question 200 and started working backwards. 199, 198, 197, 196. And then I got to question 120, a pocket of difficult questions, burst through that, got to around question 75, pocket of difficult questions. You see, the exam, the PMP exam, it's currently 180 questions, 230 minutes. Back in the day when I took it, it was 200 questions. So every now and again, you get a pocket of difficulty and it's hard to keep going, but you just gotta keep going. You gotta keep mowing it down and say, no, I ain't taking no prisoners. I'm not stopping. And I didn't stop and I kept going and I got back to question 20. Now, I didn't tell you when I got to question 20 the first time, it had taken me 1 full hour. Think about that, 1 hour to answer 20 questions, which means I'm answering a question 3 minutes apiece. It's miserable. So when I got back to question 20 in the opposite direction, I said, Phil, what are you going to do? Start changing your answers? You better say your last prayers. And that's exactly what I did. And I said, look, if I come out of this exam alive, I will tell everyone. I'll be like the one who escaped. I promise I'll tell everyone this exam is crazy. It's demented. It's on steroids. I'll tell people not to take chances. I end up hitting the end button and the screen goes blank for what seems like an eternity, and up comes a survey. We would like to find out, did you enjoy the experience? Did you like the staff? Was it clean? And in my head, I'm like, this place is as dingy as whatever. But then the gremlin jumped back on my shoulder and said, Phil, if you do that, you'll fail. They'll fail you because you said bad things about the test center. At the time, it was at Prometric Test Center, Camelback there in Arizona. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to say yes to everything. I can't take chances. So I did, hit the end button, and up comes the screen after what seemed like an eternity. Congrats! You've passed the PMP exam. Phew. I never want to do that again. I feel like a man chased by a crazed bear somewhere in Colorado without ammo. Run out of ammo, and all you got is your legs. That's how I felt. But I got out of the exam alive. And now I get to help you do better than I did on the exam. It's not to say I didn't do well, because when I got to the proctor up front, the proctor said, oh, wow, this is quite good. We haven't seen this good in a long time. I'm like, yeah, thank you. Stagger out of the place like someone who's on steroids of some sort, and I'm pumped. I get back in the car and I start calling people and telling them how I succeeded. And it's bittersweet. In one realm, I feel great that I passed, and in the other realm, I'm like, my goodness, the poor people who don't even do this much. And honestly, back in the day, a lot of people used to fail this exam, like tons of people. They would fail the test. And I ended up joining Motorola and Honeywell and other companies. And while I was at Honeywell, I ended up helping a lot of my colleagues who were failing the exam. It was very notorious. And I'm talking about 05, 06, 07. After I helped my colleagues at Honeywell get certified, I joined Skillsoft, well-known company in the training industry. I trained people over there. I ended up moving to other companies. And when the economy tanked, I decided this is what I'm going to do full time. And I started helping people worldwide, all around the world. And when we meet, you'll see a lot of names of people and companies that I've trained. And now you and I get to spend a week together, 5 days. 5 full days. Some of you are going to spread this out over weeks, but for those of you who are with me for 5 straight days, I wanted to give you, first of all, an introduction to me and my story so you know where I'm coming from. And I also wanted to break down the exam for you so that you understand what this exam is all about. All right, you ready? Pay close attention. I'm going to distill it in 5 minutes or less. The PMP exam is a 180 question test. It has multiple choice questions, choose one. It has multiple choice questions, choose all that apply. And it has questions with drag and drop. Match these 4 items to these 4 items. Match what definition you have here to what process you have, or match what definition you have here to what situation you have, whether risk, whether teams, and so on. So 180 questions in 230 minutes. That means you have about 1 minute 15 seconds to answer every question. The questions sometimes are short, and other times they are medium sized, whatever that means, and other times visibly long. So when you go into the exam, you need to be ready to answer each of those questions in roughly 1 minute 15 seconds. And that means developing the muscle memory and the ability to go through a large number of questions. Now, don't worry. A student of mine last week said, Phil, I got done with the exam and I had over an hour to spare. So not everyone finds the exam laborious. Some people read quick. People like me, I read slow. I'll just tell you straight up. And to go through the content to the best of your ability is what is most important. But you also want to be aware of the time, which means practicing a lot of questions. And when we meet in the class, we will be practicing a lot of questions. So think about this, 180 questions, 230 minutes. That means all throughout our 5 days together, I will be giving you roughly 10 quizzes a day. And each quiz is about 6 questions long, so it's not that daunting. But at the end of the 5 days on Friday, I will be giving you a 180 question test in roughly 230 minutes, just like the real exam. That day we usually end earlier because people need to go recover from the 5 days. Quite intense. So let's go over what the days are like. Okay, now you know the exam is how many questions? 180. How many minutes? 230. How many breaks do you get on the PMP exam? 2 breaks. You get 10 minutes in the first one, 10 minutes in the second one. So you do 60 questions, a 10-minute break, another 60 questions, and a 10-minute break, and then the last 60. And I'll just tell you straight up, a lot of students end up spending so much time up front in the first 60 and the second 60 that when it gets to the final 60, they're running out of time. They've only got like 40 or 30 minutes left. I had one student that had 40 questions to do in 10 minutes. She had 10 minutes left. Now, the good thing is I had taught them how to answer questions without really reading the full question. And that's what helped her to be able to finish it. Her name is Anne, and you can find her lessons learned on our YouTube channel. Quite interesting. But my friends, the summary of all of this is the PMP exam is broken into 3 domains: people, process, business. People is all about leadership, communications, and soft skills. Process is all about the practices of project management and agile. And lastly, business is all about how project management supports the business and how the business gives project management what it needs, which is the idea and the forum to solve the problem, which is really a project. So you're going to be learning people, process, business. People, process, business. But wait, there's actually more. In addition to breaking the exam down by people, process, business, you can break the exam down by agile and hybrid and predictive. What is hybrid? Hybrid is a combination of agile and predictive methods. Now, I'm guessing you've heard about agile. Agile is a mindset. It's a mindset that translates into actions. So you have a mindset of flexibility, of agility, of being able to pivot or persevere, depending, but you're able to pivot to the ever-changing world around you. It starts off in the mind, and then it translates into actions. It translates into behaviors. So what I'm saying in essence, my friends, is you will be trained, people, process, business, how to answer all of those. The quizzes we do daily are broken into people quizzes, process quizzes, business quizzes. And you'll also be trained on agile. because Agile is huge on this exam. I cannot count how many people said, Phil, I was shocked. There was so much Agile on this exam. And that's why day one, I begin introducing you right off the bat to the concept of predictive and Agile. So we do a little bit of predictive, a little bit of Agile. In the first 4 hours, I'm going to give you the top of the waves of this exam so you understand the landscape of predictive, you understand the core definitions, and you understand the landscape of Agile at this macro level. Day two, we then go into the world of Agile with a vengeance. We're covering the Agile Manifesto, which is the mindset that you need to have. We'll go through the manifesto, we'll go through the values and the principles of the Agile Manifesto, and honestly, I would love for you to read this before coming to class because it will just help you absorb the content more. Go on down to agilemanifesto.org. agilemanifesto.org. You can read the Agile Manifesto, the values, pretty humanistic. It talks about valuing individuals and interactions over processes and tools, valuing working products over comprehensive documentation, valuing customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and valuing responding to change over following a plan. Then we go into all of the principles. And then you got to go through the principles from a more realistic standpoint. So I give you the option of discussing with your colleagues and debating those principles. We're going to have a lot of fun doing that. When we're done with the principles, we then go into the world of what I call agnostic agile. I'm going to be teaching you all about the mindsets you need to have. And then eventually we will get into the world of Scrum. We'll go through the world of Scrum, we'll go through the world of estimating, we'll go through the world of Kanban, we'll go through the world of things such as the burn-up chart, the burn-down chart, the cone of uncertainty, cost of delay, Moscow, Kano. I know those sound pretty strange. Don't worry, I guarantee you they're not places in Russia or Africa. They are actually approaches we use when we are categorizing our requirements, or you could say user stories. Now I'm opening Pandora's box. I know some of you haven't heard about a user story, but I'll be teaching you all of this agile stuff. And by the time we're done, my job is to get you to a place of comfort where you feel comfortable with the lingo, where your questions are answered, and where you know what to do when class gets done. Because when class gets done, I want to give you 2 to 4 weeks to go off and study a little bit more and to hit the exam. Some of my students hit the exam in 2 weeks. Some of them hit the exam the very next week after training. It really depends. But when you come for training, I also want you to think about studying to leverage momentum as we're going through the class to study. So in the evenings, think about this. Wouldn't it be great if we got done and you went for a rest or some recreation, and then you hit the books for a little bit, and you did that, and there's a cumulative growth, and there's a geometric progression such that when you're done on Friday, all you need is a little bit more of a push, a little bit more studying to kill that thing in less than 4 weeks. That's what it's about. And that's why I'm preparing your mindset for that. So now I've given you a very high-level overview of the exam, people, process, business. We can also slice and dice the exam by Agile and Hybrid and Predictive. 50% Agile and Hybrid and 50% Predictive. I've given you a good idea of the Agile piece, right? The values at a high level. But let me give you an idea of the predictive aspects. So when we talk about predictive project management through the lens of the PMI, we generally look at 5 groups of processes we can carry out in project management. And these 5 groups of processes are initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. And it just forms the mnemonic, I prefer eating mangoes chilled, or I prefer extra money cash. Those are the 5 process groups. Groups of processes. These process groups overlap. Keep that in mind. We can also slice project management down by areas of knowledge. So think about this. When you see a juggler juggling 5 or 6 items, there's a high level of coordination going on there. very acute coordination. That similar skill translating into the world of project management, that's integration. Being able to juggle all the moving parts of the project, schedule, cost, scope, risk, procurement, stakeholder, everything else. That's integration. That's one area. The second area is scope management. Have you ever looked through a telescope? When you look through a telescope, what happens? Everything becomes clearer and magnified. And that scope management, it aims to magnify the understanding of what the project is about. We have project scope, what to do on the project, and we have product scope, what features need to be in the product. So we go over scope management. Then you have schedule management. It's all about the time, right? So when you look at the time, you want to keep on track. And that's what we do in schedule management. Then you have cost management. I often use a wallet, the wallet analogy. Cost, that's where your money is. Then we talk about quality. What is quality? Quality is fitness for use, conforming to requirements, and customer satisfaction. We're going to be talking about that in more detail. And then we move into resource management. What are resources? Human resources, equipment resources, materials, supplies, and facilities. We need to understand how best to manage our physical resources, how best to lead our human resources. There's a difference between the humans that we lead and the physical resources that we control. So we talk about that. Then we get into communications, effectively communicating the message. I always think about a megaphone, speaking through the megaphone or the microphone to broadcast the message. Then we get into risk. Risk management is all about uncertainty that can impact the project. Think about rolling dice. When you roll the dice, what happens? There's an uncertainty that it could be a 1, but there's also some measure of certainty that it could. So positive uncertainty, negative uncertainty, that's what risk is all about. Risk is about dealing with uncertainty, managing uncertainty that can impact the project positively or negatively. We get into procurement. Again, when you think about procurement, you can think about a wallet, you can think about a bank card, but at the end of the day, in procurement, we are buying something from outside the firm to help us effectively complete the project. So procurement management, we plan how to manage the procurement. We select a vendor or a seller, we award a contract, and we ensure we are getting what we paid for. Last of all, we have stakeholder management, and stakeholder management is all about ensuring the stakeholders are well integrated into the project, effectively engaged. And we go through the processes to ensure we understand our stakeholders right from the get-go, and we're always touching base with the stakeholders to make sure that we're not going off. And there you have it, my friends. 10 areas of knowledge that we've gone through. Integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder. Integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder. 10 areas of knowledge. In the training, we're going deep into all these areas. Like each of these areas has individual processes. For example, integration has 7 processes. Develop project charter, develop project management plan, direct and manage project work, manage project knowledge, perform integrated change control, monitor and control project work, perform integrated change control, and close project or phase in a particular order. And in the training, we're going to be going knowledge area by knowledge area at the appropriate time. But don't forget, as I told you in the beginning, we have Agile and Hybrid, and we have Predictive. Once you understand Agile properly and Predictive, you can make a hybrid sandwich. I'm going to be teaching you all of this stuff. So again, 180 questions, 230 minutes. Don't forget. I hope you found this to be informative. I would love for you to go over to the Praizion site to take a look at various items that we have for you. Go on down to Praizion.com. In fact, I'm going to put a link below that leads directly to this page, and I'm going to put the page below. And just go to projectmanagementdoctor.com/PMP prep. projectmanagementdoctor.com/PMP prep. And you can begin watching videos. You can begin taking a look at the content outline. You can begin taking a look at ideas and lessons learned that other students have shared from their experience. I always do my best to bring one of my students who has passed the exam in the past to come speak to you about how they did it. And hopefully we'll be doing that as well somewhere through the training. I hope you found this valuable. If you have any questions for me, shoot me a message. You can use info@praizion.com. You can use support@praizion.com, or you can put a comment right here and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much for joining me. I wish you all the very best. You're going to get all the stuff that you need. I'm going to give you all the direction you need. You're going to get access to a learning management system and all the tools you need to succeed. So thank you. I look forward to seeing you in the classroom. You take care. Come well rested. You're going to need it. Bye for now. See you soon.